doing the vice presidential debate, which, speaking of stuffed, who the fuck knows what's going to happen with this? As I was saying earlier, the GOP fucking debates, they were kind of dull, kind of boring. Then Trump and Biden was one of the most captivating things. I was so pissed when it was happening. Me and Andy were like, we should have went live.
I know.
But we figured it was going to be boring and
it was
shit.
Incredible. Like, we were like, what the fuck? But now it's over.
And Kamala and Trump, we were on break. We missed that.
Yeah.
So we figured, fuck. I guess this is the last debate. We may as well tune in to cover it.
How do you think it will be? How do you think it will be? Like, what's your thoughts? Honest thoughts.
Like, when you think about J.D. Vance, initially, before I saw J.D. Vance, because I never even saw a picture of him till he was announced as the vice presidential pick. And I started reading his like biography and shit. I go, oh, this guy seems interesting. He's got this hillbilly elegy book. He grew up in like rural poverty and he worked his way up by his bootstraps. He wrote this book. He's a best-selling author. He has these connections in Silicon Valley. I go, okay, this seems like a smart guy. He's a young choice. And then I saw the guy at the RNC.
And
I heard him speak. He looks fucked. He looks like he's wearing about as much guyliner as I have on now. But I don't even know if he's wearing eyeliner. Like, his eyes are, like, sunk back into the back of his head, fucking weird. He's fucking just, like, very, I don't know, charismaless. He comes across very creepy. Okay. Very fucking weird. I haven't been really happy with his performance as the vice presidential candidate. He seemed to, when you look into his background, come out of nowhere, be very astroturfed. Seems to me like they wanted to kill Trump to install this guy. But he is highly educated. He is very intelligent. He, is able to battle with the journalists and stuff. So he might do well in this debate. I didn't have high hopes for it. But when you look into Tim Walz, some of the footage I saw of this fucking guy, it's like, whoa, buddy. Okay. This is a cringe lord of the fucking century. So it's a real cringe-off battle. Both of these guys, I don't really think anybody likes them. We're going to quickly...
Who do you think will win? Who do you think will win? Who do you think is quicker?
I mean, I think Vance is quicker. Okay. But I think Walz is more likable and has a bit of a charisma edge, personality edge. But it's hard to really say because I think they're both so fucking unlikable. Yeah. They both suck bad. People in chat are fucking shitting on Walz. No, we got to go in. So let's go into the folder.
Oh,
I want to show people
Insomniac for 25 subs.
What?
Let's
5
subs. Let's go. And Junior
Bacon Sneedburger for 5 subs as well.
All right, we're going to go quick here.
Big support. We got to just go quick now. I thought we'd have a bit more time. We had some technical issues.
Yeah,
let's get at least
it's fine.
a couple of these clips.
All right, bang,
go
bang,
into the
bang.
Walz cringe.
We're speed running intro.
And do the tacos one.
The tacos? Okay. All right.
This is the worst.
Not this one.
No. Oh, yeah. We could do JD Vance donuts first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I got you.
And then we'll do Walz. I think we only have time.
Beauty. It's fine. It's okay, cool. Oh, by people are saying it's working now. It wasn't working on Countdown, but now it's working apparently. Cool. All right, cool.
This is the worst thing I've ever seen. Okay, bring it back.
Yeah,
okay.
I have white guy tacos.
Okay, here. Let me rewind it. Sorry. There you go.
I have white guy tacos and
what is that? Black, like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
Pretty much ground beef and cheese.
Stop. It's so bad. Do we not have the video?
No, it's up now.
Bring it back. Let's watch this again. This is so brutal. It makes me fucking hate myself. I'm cringing so bad.
White guy
tacos and
what is that? Like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
Pretty much ground beef and cheese.
This is like the equivalent. Like, this guy is like the white minstrel show. It's like if you had like a black guy that was like shucking and jiving. Yes, I just eat my fried chicken and watermelon. Like that's the equivalent, but for white people, like he's this humiliation ritual where it's like, and Kamala's treating him just like a total like pathetic bum. This is like whiteface, pathetic stuff. Keep playing it. It gets worse and worse.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the
Wait. What?
Andy, like, doesn't it hurt?
Why is
Doesn't it hurt
this?
your heart?
Why is
like
he
he's humiliating himself. He's debasing himself to debase and humiliate white men and white people in general.
And look
like,
at her here.
Oh, and she's just laughing at him, just dabbing on it. Like she goes, "Oh, I think you using some seasoning in it," and she's doing like her like full on like black impersonation voice. And this guy, he's just like, "No, I'm pathetic. I don't even season it." I hate this guy. I didn't hate him too bad until I saw this. I'm like, no, I hate this motherfucker. Don't you have some pride, bro? Like, this is just debasing yourself for nothing. Just worthless. Oh my God.
Here, let's watch this last 6 seconds.
No, they said to be careful.
Whoa!
And let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota. And
This is crazy. This
But
is actually nuts, dude. Like, what the
it's
fuck?
full on like cuckoldry. It's just full on
When you
like
explained it to me, I was like, no.
Oh, it's like, listen, white people, they do be seasoning day food, okay? We have the best food. We have the French people's food. Today, Dingo gets to be white. Italians make really good food.
Mm-hmm.
Germans make really good food. Like, pretty much everywhere in Europe. Portuguese, really good food. Spain, really good food. Eastern Europe, really good food. But this guy has to just shuck and jive and just be a dancing monkey humiliating himself. I hate him.
Okay.
Hate him. Hate him. Fuck, that was bad. Fuck, that was
Is this
bad.
him too?
This is Kamala's husband.
Okay.
Talking about Tim Walz.
Okay.
We get up there and we just do this big bro bear hug. And I cannot tell you how many texts I got from my actual friends and actual family members like, you never hugged me like that. What's going on? You literally just met this guy.
Did you hit him on the back?
Did
you hit him on?
What a fucking bizarre thing to say. That your own family calls you out for not showing them love. That you show more love to Tim Walz than you do your own like kids, your family, like just sick in the head there. This is the Kamala husband.
Why would he say this like out loud?
I don't know. This is gonna be the first second gentleman, apparently.
Wow.
On the back to preserve your heteronormativity. Did you give him the back pat?
Oh my God. It's every buzzword to make you cringe.
Washing over you. Oh, did you have to preserve your heteronormativity? Oh.
If you see the video, we just did this full on, and I think he was like this, I was like this, and then it was just this bro
Man,
hug.
I started blowing him. I started sucking him off.
Let's go to the next one there. What do we got here?
Yeah,
Look at this one, man. I don't know what he was thinking. He starts becoming a can dancer, like on Broadway, or like he's in a Vegas.
Oh my God. This is the fucking cringe.
This guy could be president if Kamala keels over and dies. Now, this does give us some level of hope.
Okay.
He said that he is a bad debater, and he said he's worried that he's going to let Kamala Harris down tonight.
Imagine just saying that.
I don't know if if this is some sort of Jedi mind trick bullshit.
4D
where he's trying to lower expectations. Let's go to Vance with the donut.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Here
This
we
is
go.
bad. So this guy's like an alien. Like people say that Darkside Phil is like an alien that doesn't know how to speak to people and is autistic or whatever. No. Watch this.
Okay.
This is like somebody who's never ever ordered like from at any sort of like restaurant or anything before.
Okay.
This is like the Spur Green text if you had to go to Subway and you failed on R9K. Let's have a look.
All right.
The zoo has come to town. Thank you for letting us come in here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man.
I don't want to be
Well,
on
first
film
of all,
to 80 camera.
he's just felt it. Like, this bitch gives him I don't want to be on film.
So
and he has no charm to, like, riz this over at all.
You
just
know, because
watch.
like Trump does it, and all the McDonald's employees love him and all this. I don't want to be on film.
Okay, yeah. She doesn't want to be on film, guys, so just cut her out of anything. Appreciate that, man. I'm Katie Vance. I'm running for vice president.
Oh my God! She's like, I
God,
don't
it's
give a
so-
fuck.
It's
I
so
don't give a
awkward.
How long are you working?
I've been here since the beginning of July.
Okay.
He's looking for like a story where she lives, like, has worked there for 5 years and is building up to manager. No, I was fucking here since July.
And he just goes, okay.
Okay.
You know, he does. Like, he just lets us know, like, oh, and how are you? Are you liking it?
Yeah,
like, is it? Like, there's just okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
How about you, sir?
Almost 2 years.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, good.
he knows just everything. Some sprinkles and
glaze.
stuff. This is order.
The glaze.
Good. Just everything. Yeah, I mean, a lot of glazed tears, some sprinkle stuff, some of these cinnamon rolls, just whatever makes sense.
Whatever makes sense. Like, bro.
Just say assorted.
Bro,
Just say assorted, bro.
Just give me a dozen assorted, or like, you know, just point out like 2 of those, 1 of this, 2 of that. But he's just like, it's so awkward and cringy. This was bad. This is probably the low point for Vance. Honestly, this is pretty grim shit.
Let's see. I hope this.
About 4 years.
About 4 years. Okay. How long have you been?
Okay.
Oh my God! Same
It's
question.
just so stilted.
The same
He has,
question.
it's like he has no idea how to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, how did he get to this position? Then we have another embarrassing Vance moment.
Okay.
Big time gaffe failure. He was caught swimming with his shirt on.
Oh.
Bro, you got it. It
Yo.
doesn't matter. Even if you're fat like me, you gotta take the shirt off in the pool, dude.
You know what's
This
embarrassing?
is like
The TMZ,
loser creep. How do you know he's on TMZ?
The circle, like with the logo over it and like the blurry shot.
It's like the candid shot. Somebody's like viewing him through binoculars in the fucking hotel pool. It's grim. It's grim. All right, let's go back to Walls. Let's quickly play his wife.
Okay.
And then let's get this debate pulled up on YouTube.
It sounds good.
Watch his wife. This is so cringy. Now, I was just told that his wife actually is a kindergarten teacher. So this makes sense as to why it's like this. Let's have a look.
All right.
Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, please mind your own business.
Wait. I'm not even fucking joking. I zoned out for a second and I thought we were watching a video of a classroom.
I know.
I thought we were watching. I'm like, is this a kindergarten? And then I look down, I see white hair, and I'm like, what? Whoa!
Let's just do it one more time. One more time. It was so good.
No, not
Ready?
one more
Oh
time.
my
It was
God.
so good. It's the same tone as a primary school teacher.
No.
Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, please mind your own business.
Ew.
It's
What
bad,
time is it,
isn't
Mr. Wolf? It's that same. What time is it, Mr.
There's
Wolf?
one more of her. This one, I think, is somehow even worse.
I don't
By the
believe
way,
it.
look at her. His wife looks like a mannequin from hell. You think she's had some work done?
I kind of liked it when she did this. Turn the page. You like that? Okay, so I need you to be with me and practice with me. What are we going to do? We're going to turn the page. Oh, pretty good. Do it again.
This is Dora the Explorer vibes.
Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
We got to get the map from the back because she looks psychotic, just totally unhinged. We had let's just go to the debate. It's starting right now.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. All right, guys. Sorry about the tech issues. We should be good here on Kick too. It should be all
I think
working.
it's working now for
Beautiful.
people. So after the debate, this should be over at 10:30.
Cool.
If you're not interested, come back at 10:30. But we'll see you. We're going to try and have fun here. Then we're going to do Loomer, Fuentes, iDubbbz.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Electoral. The vice presidential candidates there. Tim Walz standing a lone man
Loud
behind
enough
his
for you?
lectern.
It's good.
Ed,
good.
Give us your last thoughts as we
Where the
watch
hell is
here
JD
as
Vance?
JD Vance is off in the wings for the moment.
Oh, there he is.
It's performance.
He looks awkward.
Performance. That seems obvious, but no faux pas. And they're looking for a viral moment. That's what they'll be looking for tonight.
Is that what is this what we're looking for? It's not to prove like the validity of your points, to speak out on important issues. No, we're looking for viral moments. They didn't shake hands, which
we have.
They hate each other. I think they're gonna fucking like try and destroy each other. What do you guys think in chat? Press 1 if Vance is gonna win. Press 2 if Walz is gonna win. It's more appropriately that they're gonna lose. I think this is gonna be a disaster.
I think it's a double loss.
Thank you.
It's going to be a double loss. Press 3 for double loss. 3 for double loss.
We'll know pretty early on, like the vibe. We'll know the vibe. Like by the second question, we'll know. Oh boy, this because the the Biden debate that was incredible. I can't believe we didn't cover that.
By the way, we got True and Honest Ralph fan for a sub as well there. Over 2,000 watching, even though we had technical issues.
Yep,
we
and
appreciate
the
you guys tuning in.
Between the two men who hope to become vice president of the United States, Democrat
Why are they
Governor Tim
both
Walz of
women?
Minnesota and Republican Senator JD Vance.
And why does the one on the right look
this
so
is
fucking
likely the
creepy?
final debate
It was
of
like
this
she was
election
frozen
cycle,
like a
and voting is already
statue.
underway in 20 states. CBS News polling shows this remains a race either presidential candidate could win.
What do you think about the actual people asking the questions? Do you think they're going to be leaning against Vance?
Well, what do you think? Yeah, what do you think, buddy? You
I
think
mean-
they're going to be on the Vance side? Maybe Peter Thiel paid them off.
Imagine. Thoughts?
What? There's going to be no audience tonight again. Now, the mics aren't going to be muted, so it's going to be a little bit different than the ones we've had so far. So they are going to be able to yell at each other, but they said they will be able to, like, mute the mics if they want. So get ready for some fuckery.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for tonight's CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to welcome our viewers on CBS, on other networks here in the
We're
US
subbing some.
and around the world. We have a
Zaid
consequential
replied and
night
said it's
ahead,
still
and
not
our
working for
focus
him,
is the
for
issues
Kick.
that matter
So
to
some people
Let's
unfortunately
introduce
have to watch the
candidates.
replay. We're so sorry,
Minnesota's
guys.
Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator JD Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
Guys, what do you think? Will Vance immediately mention he has an Indian wife?
I'm Margaret Brennan.
In order
to have a
are we going to get into that
civil
virtue
debate,
signaling
these
right
are the
away?
rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at
Free
one
space,
candidate.
Walz
who will have
reminding
2
us
minutes
he's
to
white
respond.
and a man.
The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for
I like how they
rebuttal,
have Marvel,
and each
like,
candidate
epic
will get
before
another
battle
minute to
music,
make
you
their
know?
How
points,
long
with an
until
additional
we
1
mention
minute
Israel
each for the
versus
discussion of the
Iran?
moderator.
Will it be the first
primary
question?
role of the moderators
question?
is to
Third.
facilitate the debate between the candidates.
That's my bet. What
Enforce
about
the
you guys? What do you
Why?
think? Maybe even earlier since the bombings are happening, right?
By each other. CBS
I
News
think it will be the
reserves
first
right
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
mute
think
the
so when the
candidates'
bombing's happening,
microphones
yeah.
to maintain decorum.
We reserve
have
the
not
right
shared
to
the
mute
questions
the
or topics
mics.
with the
Are
campaigns.
these the
The
actual
stage is
moderators?
set. Governor,
I-
Senator,
wait, was it
thank
these
you
two?
for joining us.
It
Let's
is.
get started.
This is going to be
Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink
There
of
you go.
war.
There you go.
Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing.
God, yeah, I
We're
saw
gonna begin
that
tonight
earlier
with
today.
the Middle East. Margaret. Thank
We're
you, Nora.
starting with Israel.
Earlier
Let's
today,
go,
Iran
bingo!
launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed. Thanks
time
to
for
joint
war!
U.S. and Israeli defensive
War
action.
face!
President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war.
Let's go,
Iran
Israel!
is weakened. But the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world,
Let's go.
and it has
Drop,
drastically
drop.
reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the situation,
We're saying they're a week away from a nuclear weapon? What are the chances that the strike happened, that they're a week away from the nuclear weapon?
Thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists
2 more weeks for the nuke.
massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners.
He looks fucking like a doddering idiot.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its
fundamental
hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
God, this guy's fucked up.
Expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's clear is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous.
My God.
His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense
low energy
and his national security advisors
that's what I was
said
saying.
he should
We'll
be
know
nowhere
really
near
quickly
the White
how
House.
the
Now,
energy
the person
will be.
closest to them, to the Donald Trump.
Oh my
said
God!
he's unfit for the highest office. That was
I think
Senator
Vance might just
what we've
bend him
seen
over,
out
God.
of
Bend
Vice
him
President
over.
Harris is we've seen steady
Get
leadership.
him, Vance.
We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump.
Is he reading from a
Vladimir
fucking
Putin,
teleprompter?
He sounds like he's
North
reading
Korea.
from a prompter.
When we start to see
looking
that type of
directly at,
fickleness
like,
around
his
holding
eyes.
the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said
This
today,
is like Biden
we
with
will
Down
protect our
syndrome.
forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have
Let's
2
go
minutes.
preemptive
So, Margaret, I
strike.
want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American
not
people
be
who are
much
watching
better.
this evening
Oh,
and caring
no.
enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I
We're
was
in the
raised a
boredom
middle
zone.
class family. My mother required food assistance for
Gonna
periods
tell
of her
us his
life. My
life
grandmother
story instead of
required Social
answering the
Security
question.
to raise me. And she
No one
raised me in
cares
part
about
because
your
my
grandma.
mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went
My
to
mom was a
college
drug
on the
addict.
GI Bill
My
after I
mom was a
enlisted in the
drug
Marine Corps
addict.
and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most
It's a
importantly,
Yappuccino
I know
and
that a lot of you are
Buddy.
worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling
Grim.
that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90
about
minutes
the
that if we get
strike?
better leadership in the White
And
House, if
Israel
we get
just
Donald
broke.
Trump back in the White House,
He'll have
the
30
American dream is going to
seconds
be
to answer
attainable
this
once
Can
again.
we get some
Now, to answer this
clarity?
particular question, we have to
Go.
remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump
He didn't
actually
go to
delivered
war.
stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence.
Why is he
People were
looking down
afraid
like
of
that?
stepping out of line.
I don't know, he looks
Iran,
sad.
which
Like
launched
he's
this attack,
felted.
has received
He's doing
over
the felted
$100
face.
billion in unfrozen
He's-
assets
he's
thanks to the
reading
Kamala
notes.
Harris administration.
reading notes.
What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace
Call him
back
a
in
cum
the
guzzler,
world.
man.
Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is
Hey,
up
answer
to
it.
Israel what they think they need to do to keep their
Holy.
country safe,
It's
and
up
we should
to
support
Israel.
our allies wherever they are when they're
Support
fighting the bad
Israel's
guys. I think
decision.
that's the right
They
approach
are
to
the
take with the
leaders
Israel
of the
question.
world. Bow
Thank you,
down
Senator.
to the
Governor
bow
Walz,
down
do you
to
care to
the
respond to
game.
any of the
Let's
allegations?
go,
Look,
Trump
Donald Trump
sisters.
was in office. We'll
Israel's
sometimes
top
hear
guy. I
revisionist
agree.
history, but when Donald
Yep.
Trump was in office, it was Donald
Gabe
Trump
Bros winning.
who
Bring it
we
up.
had a
Gabe
coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles
just looked at the camera like
near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand
this whole
that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him.
We're
giving leadership like you did today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were
100
repelled.
subs and we'll
Our
go to
coalition is
fucking Laura
strong,
Loomer
and we
sucking off
need
Donald
steady
Trump.
leadership that
Go to
Kamala Harris is
Loomer
providing.
sucking off Trump,
Senator
folks.
Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily
had hoped
pause
it would
parts
be
of its
okay.
nuclear program,
Bro.
and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently
I don't
said,
think there's gonna be
just
a
5
viral
days ago,
moment,
the
to
U.S.
be honest.
must now
No,
make a
bro.
diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, he blamed Donald Trump.
Iran is 2 weeks away from
He's
a
been the
nuke
vice president for the
10
last 3.5
years.
years, and the answer is your
Like,
running mate,
more.
not mine. Donald
Like,
Trump
my whole life,
consistently
I've been hearing
made
Iran's
the
about to
world
get a
more
nuclear
secure.
weapon.
Now, we talk about
Seriously.
the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now.
Like, it's
and you
been
can't
forever. It's like 20
ignore
fucking
October
years
the
of this
7th,
shit.
which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and
2 weeks
Hamas
away.
and their proxies attack
more weeks,
Israel?
bro.
It was during the administration of Kamala Harris.
I
so
actually do
Governor
want to
Walz
just
can
see
criticize
Israel
Donald Trump's tweets, but
I wanna
effective,
see
smart
go in and
diplomacy
just
and peace through
destroy
strength is
them.
how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
It's a good
Gentlemen,
point.
we have a lot to get to. Nora?
Margaret, thank
Didn't
you.
get us out of
Let's turn
Afghanistan,
now to
though.
Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than
What is going on?
160 people
We're
are
talking
dead
about a
and
fucking
hundreds
hurricane.
more are missing.
This shit happens every
Scientists say
year.
climate change makes
Every
these
year, New
hurricanes
Orleans or
larger,
Florida gets pelted by a fucking
and more
hurricane.
deadly because
God knows
of
why
the
people
historic
live in these
rainfall.
fucking shithole
Senator
places.
Vance,
It's like,
according to CBS News,
man.
7
Like,
in 10
fucking God.
Americans and more than
I
60%
don't have to
of
worry about
Republicans under
hurricanes.
the
Fuck
age
you,
of
God.
45
How about
favor
if
the
you
U.S.
decided
taking
to live
steps
there,
to try
you're a
and reduce
stupid
climate
fucking
change.
idiot.
Senator, what responsibility
Holy
would the
shit.
Trump administration
Climate
have to try
change,
and
bro.
reduce
Are
the
you
impact
kidding me?
of climate change?
We don't
I'll give you
care.
2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable
start
human
with the
tragedy. I just
hurricane.
saw today actually a photograph
Israel
of 2
and the
grandparents on a
hurricane.
roof with a
Every
6-year-old child,
fucking
and it was
year.
the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof
How about
collapsed.
tornadoes
and those
in
innocent people
fucking
lost their lives.
Oklahoma
And
that
I'm sure Governor
destroy,
Walz
like,
joins
literally
me in
houses
saying
and
our hearts go
schools.
out to those innocent people. Our prayers go out to them.
Yeah,
and we want as
storm
robust
sucks.
and
Stop
aggressive
trying
as a
to
federal
live
response
in
as we can
places
get
that get
to
hit by
save as many
hurricanes.
lives as
How will
possible,
you
and then of
stop
course
the
afterwards
hurricane the
to
next
help
time
the
it
people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are
We
communities
use
that I love.
weather
Some of them I know
control
very
machines
personally
from
in
DARPA.
Appalachia, all across the
JD,
southeast. They
you
need
know
their
right
government
well
to
we
do their
have
job.
weather
And I
control
commit
machines
when
with
Donald Trump is
DARPA and
president
HARP
again, the government
that
will
could
put the
stop the
citizens of this country
hurricanes,
first when they
but
suffer
it's
from a
fucking the
disaster.
evil
Now,
deep
Nora, you asked
state
about
that
climate
conjure
change.
the
I think
fucking
this is a very
hurricanes
important issue.
to
Look,
felt these
a lot
people
of
every
people are
year.
justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions. This idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true. Just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. If you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
There's no nuclear waste.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
We got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy.
Thorium reactors.
And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors, as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no
Yeah, Walt
partisanship.
has
They work
breast
together to all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio.
I didn't want to.
Technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country.
I didn't want to say anything because, you know, like we're on a roll here.
In North America, sits in Minnesota.
I have a theory. I think it's the cable.
500-year droughts, 500-year floods.
Yeah, I think it's the
But
cable.
what they're doing is adapting.
Remember, because you remember how you were like, you said it was a short one, right? Yeah, I think because maybe it was being pulled. You probably just need like a long one. Sorry,
also
dude.
producing more clean energy.
Sorry, dude.
So the solution for us is to continue to move forward. That climate change is real.
We're so
Reducing
sorry
our
for
impact is
not real.
critical. But
We're
this
so
is not
sorry
a
for
false
the
choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower of the future, not just the current.
I can still
and
hear
that's
you,
what
by the way. It's not like,
absolutely makes sense.
but it just cuts
and then
out
we
kind
start
of a
thinking
little bit.
about
But
how do we mitigate these disasters?
This is exactly what I was
Thank you,
saying
Senator.
earlier, by
I
the
want
way.
to give you an opportunity to respond there. The
Look
governor
at that,
mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Guys.
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, and
I'm going to be real with you all.
Kamala Harris,
I don't care about climate change at all.
Climate change is serious. What they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan
because if you don't, we're all gonna die.
No,
we're all gonna die.
Even remember in Canada, we were watching on Kakada, they're like forcing us to have electric cars by 2035, and you're like,
it's like they're outlawing gas vehicles. I think it was by 2030, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like,
but it's like India and China cause all the pollution in the earth. We don't do that.
Canada doesn't do shit. No, it's crazy. Like even the United States does infinitely more than Canada.
But we have that paper straws.
We whip ourselves through the streets for shit we're not even responsible for. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator, your time is up. Governor,
why
would
does
you like to
he
respond?
look so baffled?
We're producing more natural
I thought
gas.
he'd be a bit more relaxed than that. I thought he was going to felt Vance.
Like I
so
said,
far,
again,
Vance is
these
winning.
Are not liberal folks.
I
These
think,
are not
but
folks
it's
that are
like
Green
kind of a
New Deal
draw.
folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota.
We're just like, we're on break. The other one was amazing.
We're
like, fine. We'll do the third one.
We'll finally do it today.
In Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed
at least we can make fun of them.
To think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more?
This is what's crazy, though, is this is what Ralph's show is every day.
The oil company executive,
I peeked in today.
Say, give me money for my campaign.
Unwatchable.
And I'll let you do whatever you want.
Have you tried
watching
about
that? And an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Right?
Yeah.
It's shit.
Yeah.
Seriously, what they do every day over there is just watch the news.
We're going to turn now to immigration.
With low
the crisis of the US-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil?
Fuck
You have 2
them
minutes.
kids.
So first of
Yes.
all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we
before we
have to
talk-
stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border
$250,000 man for
94 executive
five.
orders, suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do?
really
We've got
think
25 million illegal aliens
like
that are here in the
1/20
country.
of the
What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million illegal people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border.
Real
and I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
We've been making the argument that they're the real racists
specific
for 30
years, including that the vice president is quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children.
The Republicans are the real racists.
About this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this.
What Twitter says about it.
Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done.
Yeah, super
Democrats
conservative, according to you. You let Minnesota burn to the ground over a drug addict who OD'd on fentanyl.
The Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing.
Oh,
Kamala
you
Harris
super
helped get there.
conservative.
1,500 border
Guaranteed he was
agents.
a rhino.
Detection for
Guaranteed
drugs.
the bill is a piece of shit.
DOJ money to speed
saying,
up.
The bill would have legalized
on this,
millions.
just what America wants.
Listen, we were
But as
already
soon as I was
gone
getting ready to
under
pass
Reagan
and
and
actually
the
tackle this,
amnesty.
Donald
Not
Trump
again.
said no, told them
No
to vote against
more.
it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So
what would
we
they
have
talk
the options to do this. Donald
if
Trump
they
had
got
4
their
years.
abortion
He had
back?
4
Then
years
what
to do this. And he
It's the same
promised you,
argument.
America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling him what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator,
Are
the
we really
question
being told
was, will you
all of
separate
the
parents from their children,
Is that what
even
he's trying
if
to
their
tell
kids
us?
are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my
What a-
point is that we already have massive
Nobody
child
even
separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules.
Who
I said
built
that she
the
enabled
cage?
the Mexican drug
Does
cartels
anybody
to
remember when
operate
Obama
freely
had
in this
the kids in
country.
the
And we
cages
know
and
that
no
they
one
use
gave a
children
shit?
as drug mules, and it is a disgrace.
But
and
when
it
Trump
has to
had it,
stop.
it was the end
Look,
of
I
the
think
world.
what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala
True.
Harris went
Good,
out
man.
bragging
It
that she
doesn't.
was going to undo
It
Donald
smells
Trump's
like
border
bullshit.
policy. She did exactly
Smells
that.
like bullshit.
We had a
She
record
was
number of
borders
illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president.
Really Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fixed this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize
we legalize all of the illegal immigrants. We do no deportations. We build no wall, and then just pray magically it all fixes itself.
People who were here legally
right.
in the
We
community.
did that under Reagan.
The Republican governor
it's
said,
still a problem.
It's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue.
And the consequences has on his Twitter, any compromise with poison is death. Like the compromise here is, okay, we
Senator Vance
add
wants to
like
solve
20 million new Democratic voters to the rolls,
not working together to find a solution,
we might get a fence.
And when it becomes a talking point like
this, if they feel like building it, Cards Against Humanity doesn't buy the land and cuck us.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree?
Well, then why didn't he get it done in the first place?
Would need to
if the executive branch could solve it unilaterally, why didn't he solve it in his first term?
Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally.
And the public doesn't have the will to allow the border agents to do their job. And we hear bitching and crying about children being separated all the time. It becomes a pretty much impossible task. It's fucking retarded.
All across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing,
they should be blamed.
We can talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame.
Well, it's not just one
also
thing.
Gives the money necessary to adjudicate.
Factor,
I
Tim,
agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done.
Supply and demand. When you bring in more people, there's more demand.
You start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. I don't talk about my faith a lot. But Matthew 25:40 talks about
Here we go.
the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
As you want to kill unborn children.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status.
Let men use the women's washroom.
Let men, Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy.
Shame on you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process.
Kamala
We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we want to have.
app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that
they had to mute him. They're shutting it down.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora.
Thank you, Margaret. Top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan. So let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from.
Do you?
We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis. Prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now
Are you going to solve the national debt?
A 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you.
But they already,
Kamala Harris is so to do the things she wants to do.
Right now.
We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair
the
share.
fuck was this?
When you do that,
Where the
our
fuck
system
was
works
this?
best.
Shut
More
the fuck
people
up.
are participating in it, and
we
folks
swear
have
we'll
the
do
things
this
that they need.
next time.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even
his
from
points
previous
are
Republican
sharp.
tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay
I
to
bet
middle class
Fuentes
and
is
working
seething
class
at this
Americans.
point.
It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does.
Who was pushing for everything to shut down?
If you need
it was the Democrats who wanted everything to shut down, who torpedoed the economy. That was leftist.
And I ask you,
the whole thing was a fucking nothing burger. And we torpedoed the entire economy and sent inflation through the fucking roof.
Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years.
Holy shit.
That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy.
Oh, fuck,
more.
he's
Why?
smacking
If you're
Walz
listening
around.
tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were.
What a crybaby.
Look, I'm a
It's
union
so
guy
stale.
on this. I'm
What
not a guy
Vance
who wanted
just
to
said
ship
was
things
refreshing
overseas, but I
and new.
understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics.
Walz is scared. Look in his eyes.
Tim Walz is doing,
honestly,
Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household.
You have to grease up the wheel a little bit.
To not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Do you want to change the
Have a lot to get
topic?
to
You
ahead,
got bent over,
gentlemen,
bro.
on many topics, but right now I want to talk about
Let's go.
personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989.
What?
But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of
You
this,
lied.
look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that
anything?
you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17.
I rode my bike
worked on
with my
family
buddies.
farms, and then I used the GI Bill.
Go ahead,
to
answer.
become a
Why did
teacher,
you lie?
passionate about it. A young teacher. My first
It's
year out,
such
I
a
got
cope.
the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China.
Cybershot, give me 5 subs.
Thank you
I
so
came
much.
back
Let's
home
go.
and then started a program.
He's
to
just
take
on a
young
script.
people there. We would take
Yeah, he is.
basketball
Not even
He's
teams,
reading.
we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at.
They hate you.
Look,
At the
I
state
will be
fair,
the
they
first to
mocked
tell
you.
I have poured my
Anonymous,
heart into
skip
my
to
community.
10.
I've
Stop.
tried to do the best I can,
Let's
but I've
go.
not been perfect. And I'm a
He's
knucklehead
not
at
answering the
times,
question.
But it's always
You're a
been about that.
knucklehead?
Those same people
You
elected
lied
me
to make
Congress
yourself look good.
for 12 years. And in Congress,
Stop being a
I was one of the
knucklehead.
most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done,
nothing to do with
working on
the
veterans
question.
benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say
I hope
more than
Vance
anything,
just sticks the knife
many
in
times
and twists it
I will
here.
talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising
What is
Xi
what,
Jinping
40 years
about
ago,
COVID.
when
And I
Donald Trump was
guarantee you he
building
wouldn't start a trade war
skyscrapers
that
in
he ends up
Manhattan?
losing.
He
So
should have
this
come
is
with
about
you to
trying to
Tiananmen
understand
Square,
the world. It's about
which he
trying
didn't go
to
to.
do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is.
His whole thing
commitment,
is
whether
just
it was
pivot
through
to Trump,
teaching, which
pivot
I
to
would
Trump.
do
yeah,
that,
that's all it
or whether
is.
it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things
But you
that I
didn't
think are the
deploy.
values that people
Shit's
care
gonna
about.
get fucked here. Finish him,
Governor,
Vance.
just
He's
to
cooked.
follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the
No,
discrepancy?
she's like,
all I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just.
You lied.
That's what I've said.
Papa
Papa
Stovepipe
Stovepipe
I
for
was
10
in-
subs.
Let's go.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went
But
in.
you weren't
And
there in
from that, I
Tiananmen
learned a
Square.
lot of what needed to be in governance.
He's cooked.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've said, you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments.
He's Hitler.
And explained you then voted for Donald
Good
Trump
job,
in 2020.
Vance. He's
But the
Hitler.
Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president.
Wow.
Writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his
He
economic
goes, I
populism.
meant that as a compliment,
Yeah,
actually.
Running mate,
And he
and
just
you've
does
shifted
the
many of your
Nazi
policy
salute.
stances to
Yeah,
align
I
with
bet
his.
Hitler and like
He
the
goes, "Hail
positive.
Trump."
Vice President.
Yeah.
Why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all,
There you
because I
go.
believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications
Let's
of his
go.
record.
Turns it around
But
on the
most
media.
importantly,
Yep, that's
Donald
smart.
Trump
That's
delivered
smart.
for the
Framing.
American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from
I'll say
2020.
this, he's pretty
Margaret, I've been
good.
extremely consistent.
Yeah,
that I
he's
think a lot
polished
of
and
things that we
sharp,
could have done
clean,
better in the
calm.
Trump administration
Tallies
the
like
first
Ivy
round.
League educated.
Congress was doing
I
its
can
job.
see why he
I
was
strongly
chosen
believe, and I've been a United
Yeah,
States senator,
no, I could-
that
He
Congress
hasn't
is
had a
not just
chance to
high-class
really
debating
shine
society.
before
It's not just a
this.
forum for
This is
senators
what
and
he's good
congressmen
at.
to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern.
And look at
so there were a
Waltz
lot
is
of
like,
things on
look,
the
he's
border,
like,
on tariffs,
look,
for
he's like
example,
looking left
where
and
I think
right,
that we
and
could have
he's
done
like
so much
panicking.
more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit
looks
better
so
about how they
sad.
govern
Yeah, he
the
looks like
country.
he's
They were
about
so
to
obsessed
cry.
with
Like, he looks
impeaching
like he's
Donald
about to
Trump,
cry.
they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're not probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing
That's smart,
jobs.
by the way.
And
That's
it's the
smart,
one
right?
issue, the most pro-worker part of
But
the
then
Biden
say,
administration.
well,
it's the
Biden did
one
it
issue
too.
where Kamala
Yeah,
Harris
so
has
smart,
run away
very,
from Joe
very,
Biden's record.
very sharp.
Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Great
Thank
answer.
you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after
we go.
Roe
Well,
here we
versus
go.
Wade
It's
was
the abortion
overturned,
time.
you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes
they're
to abortion.
felting.
Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine.
What the?
Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy.
Okay.
And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather.
This is what they
Those
do.
are horrific.
They
Now,
argue
when
the
he got asked about that,
exceptions to
Senator
prove
Vance said, "Two
the
wrongs
rule.
don't make a right." There is
The
no right
reality is
in this.
over
So in
98%
Minnesota,
of these
what we did
procedures
was
are
restore
elective.
Roe versus
The
Wade.
mother's life
We
is
made
not
sure
at
that we
risk.
put women
She's not
in
been
charge of
raped.
their health care.
It's not the product of
this is not what-
incest.
if you don't
So
know
you go to these
Amanda
extreme
or Hadley,
exceptions, these
you
horror
soon will.
stories
Their
to
project
justify
2025
abortion
is gonna
on
have a
demand
registry
for
of
convenience
pregnancies.
sake.
It's going to make
That's
it
what
more
this is.
difficult, if not impossible, to
Every
get
time.
contraception and limit
Every time.
access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's
a
nobody
bit
else's
much. I am
business,
cope.
but those things are being proposed.
The
And
AI
catch-all
got you,
on
buddy.
This is well, the
sorry.
states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how
Yeah.
this works. This
No,
is
that
basic
makes
human
sense,
rights.
though.
We have seen maternal mortality
why should
skyrocket in Texas,
states that have
outpacing
completely
many other
different
countries in the
moral
world.
values
This
have
is
to
about
live under the
healthcare.
same
In
law?
Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women. We trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restricted state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth.
Oh, no.
The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography?
How about you don't let a man come in
Amber Thurman lived in
How
Minnesota.
about you take birth
She would be
control?
alive today.
How about you use a
That's
fucking
why the
condom?
restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
Giving really good
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that, too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator.
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive.
Yeah,
I certainly
nobody
wish that she
thinks
was.
she should die.
And maybe
You know,
you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me. But as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen. Do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Solid.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this,
what part?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved.
I use this line on this,
just mind your own business.
It was just fact-checked.
Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on. And we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
That was their best segment, too. That's their best
He's
issue.
panicking. Yo, he's sweating, eh?
Walls is fucking screwed.
Have you seen the meme on Twitter where it's like fucking Walt's all panicked looking over, and Vance is like posing? Did you see that? Put it on screen. I think DACA fucking.
I can't believe how well this is actually going. I was a bit worried during the abortion segment, but Vance, every time with his answers, he was moderate, he was reasonable, but at the same time, he didn't sell out, on pro-life values. So he still kept the pro-life voters. I think his rhetoric was good on it. When he challenged Walz, well, what part of the law? Can you tell me? And he brought it back to that about 3 different times and just crushed him. And he looked foolish. He looked like he's like, oh, man.
Look at
There's
that.
the visual image. There's the image of the debate. I really want to hear CNN's cope tonight. Oh, buddy, I'm going to get it pulled up for right after. Because I want to listen to, I know, guys, for some people it's kind of dry, but I want to hear the cope. I want to hear how they tell us how Walz won. Because on the border, he was destroyed. On the economy, that's where it went really bad. Like on free trade, everything like that, he just nailed it. And then on abortion, he really masterfully walked through on it. It was really good.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo Mechanic, just throw however many subs. We'll do a bit of extra coverage on this. Tonight's, I guess, kind of a politics-heavy night. I'm glad we tuned in. It was really slow at first. I'm like, oh no, fuck.
Okay, I'll tell you why. It sucked at first. The Iran, the war, and the fucking
the Israel stuff,
and what's it called? The fucking pollution and the ozone layer, climate. It's so you can't fucking. It's so boring. It's so fucking. But then you get into actual, real fucking
debate where
real
they're going
topics.
back and forth.
Yeah,
and topics as well that do matter.
That
right?
matter.
That
Yeah,
care about.
Pollution. Okay, dude. Like how are you gonna change pollution? Here we go.
All right, here we go. We're back.
Welcome back to the CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The leading cause of death for children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s.
I didn't know that. I never heard that
earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Parents?
Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases,
this is really out of left field. They're really trying to crucify
and the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better.
Walz is going to try and virtue signal and overreach on this way too far.
The question is just how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer.
No, for sure.
Because
I thought
don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers.
I don't know. It's kind of a
we can magically wave the wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys. It just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan
You're going to prison, kids.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the San Diego parents.
Mandatory
and they were
bulletproof
looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old
Every kid a bulletproof
and they were asking us to do something.
Helmet.
And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced
we just need to give up
and
our constitutional rights for our kids.
If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow
our
research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools.
So they don't have any guns in Finland.
Have this happen, even though they don't have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference.
Canada has a high gun ownership rate.
It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there,
There's
it just doesn't
about
make any
Finland
sense.
in particular.
Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your gun. But I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
I don't know.
Senator?
Maybe it's that
Tim, first of all,
Finland
I
is
didn't
a
know that your 17-year-old
homogenous,
witnessed a
high-trust
shooting.
society.
I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful.
Very
And
good
I appreciate
response
what Tim
there.
said actually
Empathy.
about Finland, because I do
Throwing
think
in
it
the empathy
illustrates
card,
some of
for
the,
sure.
frankly, weird differences between our own
He's
country's gun
really
violence
coming
problem
across like
and
more
Finland.
normal,
Okay, first of
empathetic.
all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse.
Because you saw his
or mental
reaction
health,
when he said that.
substance
he looked
abuse.
down and shook his head
We
and
have
went, "Oh,
way
man,"
higher
you
rates
know,
of
like, it's
depression,
good,
way
it's good.
higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities.
Norway
And this is
is
why we
similar
have
to
to
Finland,
empower
but they
law
had
enforcement to
Breivik.
arrest the bad
So there's
guys,
still,
put
like,
them
weird
away, and
freaks
take
that will
gun
find
offenders
guns
off
and
the
do this
street.
stuff
I think there's a
anyway.
whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've
There
seen
we-
it. Look, the NRA.
What,
I
he
was
became
NRA
friends
for a
with
long
school
time. They
shooters?
used to teach guns safety.
Can we
Donald
bring
knew
that
where
back?
my
Did
shotgun
he
was.
just say he became friends
In that
with
office
school
with those Sandy Hook
shooters?
parents. I've
It's
become
over.
friends
There's
with
the
school
viral
shooters.
moment.
I've seen- Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA. NRA got killed one time. They used to teach gun safety. That's why we get all of the issues.
Yes.
Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up
Why
doing
is he
is we start
saying
looking for a
that?
scapegoat.
Why is he
Sometimes
saying
it's
that?
just the guns.
Just because you have
It's
a
just
mental
the
health
guns.
issue
And
doesn't
there are
mean
things
you're
that you can do
violent.
about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find
blew
solutions
it.
on this that works.
You blew it.
Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen,
Good
thank
job,
you. Margaret.
Walls.
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn
Oh,
now to the
fuck.
top contributor to
I would love her to
inflation,
go like,
the high
"You're
cost of
friends
housing
with who?"
and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4
friends with
million
school
homes in the
shooters?
United
You're
States,
right. Did you
and
say
that
you're friends
contributes
with school
to the high
shooters?
housing prices.
That's
Governor
gonna be all
Walz,
over Twitter
the
in like
Harris
5
campaign
seconds,
proposed
isn't it?
No, it's
$25,000
cooked.
down payment assistance
Yeah,
for
come on.
first-time home
Scream down.
buyers
Oh, hell
and
no.
a $10,000
Oh,
tax
hell
credit.
no.
They also
You know, everyone
promised
in the back
to build
room was like,
3 million new homes.
This idiot
Where are you
can't be
building these
president.
homes, and won't handing
This
out
guy's
that
a
kind of money
liability.
just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks
doesn't
living in
even
those
matter
houses.
what he's
Those of you
saying.
listening
It's-
tonight,
it's over.
that house is a big deal. I bought
It
and owned
he
one house in my
botched
life.
it so
my mom
bad.
still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've
drowning.
seen a 12%
He's
increase
drowning
in
out
stock
there.
because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance.
Yeah, I get
We
what you're
it back
saying,
from
Nate.
people,
Like Vance,
because
he
here's what
doesn't
we
have
know.
that
People
charisma,
with
but like
stable
Darty
housing
is
end
saying,
up with stable jobs.
when he starts
People with
talking
stable
and he
housing
starts
have
flowing,
their kids able to be able
he
to get to
makes
school.
really good
All of those
points.
things
His
in the long
rhetoric
run
is good.
End up saving
His
our money.
arguments
And
are
that's the thing
structured
that I
right.
think we should be able to find
And
some
it's
common
clean.
ground in.
I
but we
can see
can't
why he
blame,
was chosen now.
immigrants for the only
I really
reason. That's
didn't
not the
see it
case that's happening
before,
in many cities.
I didn't
The
have a
fact
lot
of
of
the matter
hope,
is
but I'm
that
really
we don't
impressed.
have enough naturally affording
I think he can be
affordable
president.
housing, but
I
we
think
need
he
to make
could be
sure that the
president.
government's there to help
Honestly.
kickstart it,
Yeah.
create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build
it does.
all the new homes you're promising, and what
What?
part of any
Where
of
are
this
you
plan
going to
will
build
provide
the new homes?
immediate
What, do we
relief?
just have no
Here's 2
land in
minutes.
America?
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president.
Yes,
she needs to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable.
Trump
I
only
invite
brought
her to
that
use
up
the office
once.
that the American people already gave her, not sit around
times.
and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American
You have the
dream
ability
of
to do it
homeownership
now.
completely unaffordable.
This is a young
now, you
guy,
asked, Margaret, what
he's
would
sharp,
immediately change the equation for American
he's
citizens
ready to be
if you
president.
lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods, too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer
on that one word? It didn't even matter.
We will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Oh, he slipped up
well,
a bit, but he fixed
we
it.
have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for
He didn't
anything.
say he
They're not
was
being
friends
used for
with
national
school
parks. They're not
shooters.
being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not true. And
Well,
again, you have
well,
the
they
facts.
are.
I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office.
What are you?
But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find a solution.
about?
I was going to ask, though, on this question,
It's a
are we
lie.
going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the country we do.
What are they talking
There's
about?
not a lot of federal lands in and
Yeah,
around
the
Minneapolis,
fucking
for
tar
example.
belt,
So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks.
Yeah, is
and
all
our
the
federal
footage
lands. Look,
fake of them
Minnesota,
crossing
we
the
protect this
rivers?
thing. We've got about
You know what I
20%
mean?
of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is
anyone with common sense.
But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this
supply
problem?
and demand.
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
And they wanted
what are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
You know what? I'd like to actually have a house. I don't even have a house to escape from.
You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
You want to be able to escape from the fire?
Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, I have concepts of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice.
Finally, a good healthcare answer.
Well, we talked about this on Cooking,
reinsurance regulations.
How you were like,
I was
you don't
talking
know
about.
how much
Donald
anything
Trump
is.
Has said that if we allow
you walk
states
in,
to
they're just like,
experiment
oh,
a little bit on how to cover
for that.
both
You're
the
like,
chronically ill, but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan.
Smart.
He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States, and I think you can make a really good argument that it
Band-Aids are
salvaged
$50 each at the hospital,
which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done.
Genius!
But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and health care costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had
Trump's
access
policies
to
are
affordable
good,
care.
but he says
It's not
crazy
perfect,
shit.
of course, and there's so much more that we can do. But I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better health care policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3 Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA.
You're right. Todd, you're right. He's trying to say a joke there.
To repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look,
only has
this
10
issue,
minutes to
and
turn
when
this
Donald
around.
Trump said,
He's so
not
I
gonna
got a concept of a
happen,
plan,
dude.
it cracked me up
Look
as a
at that
fourth grade
there.
teacher because my kids would have never given me that.
He's
But
on the
what
verge
Senator
of
Vance
laughing
just
at
explained
it.
might be worse than a concept. Because what
He
he
almost
explained is
snickered.
pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time.
He's spiraling.
What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system
those of you
didn't
that have
work.
cancer-
Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true.
clean.
A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher. And he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment
Tough
under
for
the
Walz.
Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system
So it's
works.
higher now
And
under
the question about this of young people, whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then
So
what
you
happens
think the
is
individual mandate's a good idea?
you shrink. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people
This
know
is a
that they need to be
stomping,
on
man.
healthcare. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well,
I wouldn't want to be him in the room with Kamala after, would you?
Once you get past 70.
Kamala's going to get shittered on wine and just scream at him. She's going to throw the wine bottle at his head.
Negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first
Trump is jacking off watching this
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
I'm like, JD, I knew you were the pick.
Margaret, let's talk
So
about
glad I
families
trusted
in
PETA.
America.
Fantastic. He's great.
There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few
Walz is getting a
developed countries
NISA tonight.
in the world
Full on
without
bag.
a national paid leave program. for
And the
new
wine
parents.
bottle's going up
Governor
his ass.
Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be
Trump's
required
getting
to
sucked
pay
off
workers
by
while they
Loomer
are
in the
home
bathroom
taking care
right
of their
now.
newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's
We're
negotiable.
going to
and
have
that's
to
what
watch the
Congress works. But
CNN
here's what the deal
cult.
is.
It's going to be good.
American
Dan
citizens
Jones
right now,
is going
you
to
may
freak out.
work
I
for a
sent
big
you the
company.
link.
Look,
to
we're
CNN.
in Minnesota,
Yeah,
some of the
got
largest
it.
Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in
Ever ready.
Colorado or in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets
how
the child
long?
off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency.
He doesn't
in
even
that.
know how
So
long
Kamala
he
Harris
let
has
them
made it
stay
a
home
priority.
for.
We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some cases, that
cancer
means
sucks,
no paycheck
bro.
because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump
How
has
long are
set
they gonna let him
for the
talk
wealthiest
for, by the
amongst
way?
us. He's
$250,000
willing to give
man
those
for 5 subs.
breaks to the wealthiest.
Let's go.
He's willing to say,
Let's get
"Fuck
some
those unions,
subs."
whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family medical leave and help with this
just
will
throw the
enhance
Hail
our
Mary
workforce,
and
enhance
say
our
Vance
families,
had
and make
sex
it
with
easier
the
to have the
couch.
children that you want.
You may as
Governor,
well.
your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model
I don't think
that
there's
makes
anything
choice
that Walz
possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach.
Just a massacre.
I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in the neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies.
You're right.
We want to go choice and how we deliver
it's
family
like
care and how
sales
we promote
101.
child care. Because look
at him. He's getting closed. He's nodding.
And, of course,
like
Tim
he's
and I have
getting
been on the campaign trail a
subconsciously
lot the past 7 or 8
dominated.
weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing.
I think Walz
between
gonna vote
going
for
to work or
fucking
taking care
Vance
for
and
their
Trump.
kids. That is an
I think you should be
incredible
president,
burden to put on
Vance.
American
You
families.
did
We're
real
the
good,
only country
JD.
that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance,
You can
many
tell
things
the
about the
moderators are
American
feeding.
family. The Federal Reserve says parents will
The
spend
moderators,
nearly
you
as
can tell
much
they're
on
shocked,
child
dude.
care as they do
She's
on
like,
housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently
She's
said,
mad.
as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, child care options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Yep.
He's shook.
Can you
Look
clarify
how
how
shook
that
he is.
will solve the child care shortage?
He's scribbling in his notepad
Well, because
the whole time.
as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't
Notepad
have enough
can't
resources
save him.
going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families. Because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
They thought he was their ace in the hole.
Governor Walz,
with the
your
bum,
ticket also has
and
some
he
child
just
care tax
dog
credit
walked
proposals.
him.
Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Rattled.
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and
where was
this is the
JD
biggest issue.
until
Everybody
this
listening
point,
tonight
though?
knows. I
Where
mean, I'm
was
sure they were
he?
shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's 5,000 or 6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear where we're at on this. It's
you guys
because we
want
got
first.
out of an
You wanna go to
imbalance on this.
CNN
We
right
thought
away.
we
I
were going to
think you
get
go
by
to
by not
CNN.
paying people. I don't think Senator
Want
Vance and I are that
TYT
far apart.
or
I'm not
Vosh
opposed to what he's
or
talking about on options. We've done
I think we
scholarship
go
types of things.
CNN
I think we
first,
need to
right?
be open
Yeah,
to making
I'm
the
gonna
case.
get all the
But
links
issue
ready,
here
and then I'll
is,
have them all
the question
all
you
on the
asked
tabs,
is,
okay?
you're not going to pay
CNN,
for it with these
CNN.
tariffs.
Okay.
That's just
Then
adding another
Vosh,
$4,000
then
on the family and
you
taking
want
less.
CNN, then
So
that's
not
the-
only do they
Why?
not
I
get
don't
the money
know.
to pay for
It's
that,
all really
they're $4,000 in the
Paul.
hole. That's Wharton's school. That's his alma mater. And so I think
here
the
we
issue
go.
here is, if those
There's
members of
only 1
Congress,
minute
I
left.
can't believe they're not. When I go to
There's only
businesses,
1
sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing. Because we know the
Well,
problems,
we're gonna do
especially in a
CNN
state like
first. I
Minnesota.
think everybody
we
in
need more
chat
workers
can
because
send.
our economy's growing.
Then
but we need the
after
workforce.
that, it's either Vosh,
Thank you. We need to move on.
or
Nora?
TYT.
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy
One President
and
Hope we'll
inflation.
get to tomorrow.
After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed
Sober
62
children, I don't mind
lawsuits
President
contesting
Sunday
the
because the
results.
punches left a lot, and I
Judges,
like
including those appointed by President
Okay,
Trump
we have
and
TYT
other Republican
first.
presidents,
Destiny
looked at the evidence
second.
and
Bosch
said
is,
there was
losing at
no
9%.
widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for
I don't know.
January
Unplugged and
6th.
plugged back in the mic.
Senator Vance,
It's all good.
you have said
It
you would
switched
not
to
have
your,
certified the
your
last presidential election
webcam mic,
and would
so
have
just
asked
switch
the
it in the
states to
settings.
submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal.
We'll get it fixed.
Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said,
really
and that's
Honestly,
all
all
that
the
Donald Trump
stories
has
I heard
said.
about
Remember,
Vance is like he's
he
terrible,
said that on
this, that, the
January the
other.
6th, the
I'm like
protesters
watching this
ought
like,
to protest peacefully.
this is what
And on January the
politics
20th, what happened? Joe
Yeah,
Biden
when I
became the
was
president.
first,
Donald Trump left the
heard he
White
was
House,
picked,
and
I
now,
was
of course,
excited,
unfortunately,
Yeah.
we
and I
have
thought he
all
would
of
be
the negative
disliked
policies
it.
that have come from the
And then
Harris
everything
Biden
about him
administration.
sucked that I
I
heard.
believe that we actually do
And
have a threat
now
to
I'm like,
democracy in
wow,
this country,
he
but
really was
unfortunately,
amazing.
it's not the threat to democracy
Yeah.
that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans
There we
Good
go.
casting
point.
aside
Good
lifelong
point.
friendships because of
Bingo.
disagreements over politics.
really
It's
good
big
point.
technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And
Yes!
it's Kamala
Yes!
Harris saying
Yes!
that rather than debate and persuade her
Finally!
fellow Americans,
Exactly.
she'd like to censor people who
Censor,
engage in
block
misinformation.
them.
I
Oh,
think that
it's-
is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that
What
we've
a
seen
great
in this country
closing
in the last
message.
4 years, in the last
Amen,
40 years.
Brother
And
Vance.
I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by
With-
two lifelong
and it's
blue-collar
without any of the
Democrats, to
buzzwords.
have the endorsement of
Yeah.
Bobby
You know what
Kennedy
I mean?
Jr. and
Like
Tulsi Gabbard,
woke, right?
lifelong
It's
leaders
just like
in the
it's very
Democratic
just
coalition. And
real.
of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during
Beyond
COVID.
industrial
She's
scale.
done it over a number of other issues,
It's a
and that to me
global
is a much
scale,
bigger
like, for
threat
real.
to
This is
democracy than what
amazing.
Donald Trump said when he said that
He looks like he's
protesters should
gonna cry,
peacefully
man.
protest on January the
This is
6th.
the saddest.
Oh, I actually feel bad for
Well, I've
Walz.
enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator. But
me
there's,
too, man.
there's one though that this.
Oh,
this is
no,
trustworthy, and I say
he's
that because
admitted
I
he
think we need
lost.
to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that
my
day.
God.
Some with the American
back.
flag.
He's
Some
on
later
the
died, and it wasn't just in there.
He's
in
on the Jan
Minnesota,
6
a group
vote.
gathered on the state.
Oh,
in St.
no.
Paul and said,
That's
we're
the
marching to the
emergency
governor's
shoot,
residence, and
isn't
there may
it?
be casualties. The only
Jan
person there is
6,
my son and his
the
dog, who was rushed out
insurrection.
crying by
Save
state
us.
police. That issue,
Whoa,
and
that-
Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right
Well-
decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the
is that what you're
groundwork
doing to
for
Trump?
people not accepting this.
Oh.
And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened
you're being
on
honest
January
about your
6th,
loss.
the first time in American history.
Oh, buddy. Will he shake
that
his
a
hand
president
after?
or anyone
Because he
tried
didn't
to
shake his
overturn
hand
a fair
before.
election and the peaceful
You
transfer of
gotta
power.
shake your
And here
opponent's
we are
hand
4
when you
years later
lose.
in the same boat. I will tell you
fair.
this.
But he
that
says
when this
that,
is
but
over,
then they
we
spit
need
on
to shake
Trump
hands
at
this
every
election,
corner,
and
right?
the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop.
There's
It's
no
tearing our country
stability when
apart.
it comes to Trump. You guys are tearing the country
Senator
apart
Vance,
by
did you wanna
wanting to
respond to that?
imprison
Yeah, well,
Donald
look,
Trump.
Tim.
Yeah.
First of all, it's
I
really
thought this was
rich
only 90
for
minutes.
Democratic
It's
leaders
going
to
on a
say
bit
that
longer.
Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we
You
win,
will
and I think
shake
we're going to
my
win. But if Tim
hand.
Walz is the next vice president, he'll
Tim
have my
Walz is
prayers, he'll
gonna
have
go
my best
Dr.
wishes, and he'll have
Schultz
my
and
help
Django
whenever
and
he
shoot him rather
wants
than
it.
shake
But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the
You'll
results of
shake
elections.
my
Hillary
hand.
Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
He just
January
brought
6th
up
was not
Hillary
Facebook
denying
ads.
the election.
And I think of revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has
stop
massive
acting like
repercussions.
January 6th was
This idea that
9/11,
there's
like,
censorship to
shut the
stop people from doing, threatening to kill someone.
The
threatening
only
to do
person
something.
who
That's not-
died
that's
was
not
on
censorship.
the
Censorship is
side of
banned.
the fucking
We've seen
protest.
that. We've seen that
there's
brought up.
basically
I just
not
think
one
for
point.
everyone
a lot of the
tonight,
time
and
you watch
I'm going to
debates, you're yelling at the screen, say this, say that. He said everything that we wanted him to say.
Bang, bang, bang,
He
bang, bang.
nailed all the rhetoric, all of the talking points that are sharp and good and clean.
Yeah.
Turn it back.
Am I bad to say that he's better than Trump?
He's a lot better than
Did
Trump
he lose
right
the
now.
2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from
Thank
speaking
you.
their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump doesn't think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas. And then let's come together.
Boy, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the
masks.
governor does have the floor.
Theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute.
Fatality.
Yeah.
Well, the fatality.
I don't know Facebook. What I do know is
and then the moderators censor him.
Who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election. That's why
saying
Mike
the same
Pence isn't
shit
on this
over
stage.
and over again.
What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows
the firewall
he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America.
Oh my God!
Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that. Because of course that's what we would do.
Kamala
so
might
America,
be felt
I think
it from
you've got
this
a
one.
really clear choice on
pretty
this
bad
election of
performance.
who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News.
Is it 2 hours? I thought it was only 90 minutes. If he has to go
I'm in.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Here, I'll lower the volume. I'm actually in, dude. Like, I'm sorry to say, like watching Trump debates, like, okay, whatever, it's all right. But then watching this, you're just like, oh, that's how, yeah. You know,
That's how it's done. Let's be real. Trump is 80 years old. Like, when you're 80 years old, you can't do that.
True. Fair enough.
You know, 2016, Trump was a great debater, and he was just able to felt people. He was really sharp. But, you know, he was never like a politician, like a really sharp politician that's super smooth and on point with studies and facts and statistics. That's what Vance is. Vance is a debater. Like, you can tell he was in debate club at his
100%.
Ivy League university. That's what he's about. And he just nailed it tonight. He just nailed it tonight. He's just able to walk that tightrope really well on appealing to the base, but still being moderate and reasonable enough that the average person can agree with him. Whereas Trump is just so bombastic.
It's too much. Yeah.
Should we go to TYT real quick?
Do you want to TYT? Yeah,
let's
sure.
go to TYT real quick.
Well, yeah, because I'm really impressed how, like, a lot of his questions are like, or his answers aren't like pressing too hard. He's being like realistic about it, right? Yeah. He's like, you don't have to agree with Trump. Like, that's a great statement. Whereas they have like TYT live.
Are they even?
They're not even every day. Yeah, they're live. They're live.
Sure that they wouldn't make it on the ballot. So let's hear what he has to say, and a little later we'll hear from Marianne Williamson as well.
All three of us are perfectly aware of the rules in every other state, and we have asked repeatedly the state of Florida through our campaigns what the rules are here so that we could abide by them. They never returned our calls or our emails to any of the campaigns. And then the day before the deadline, they say, oh, by the way, we made this decision. Not only did we make this decision,
let's go to Cenk or
we made it a month ago.
Hassan or Destiny.
Sure. By the way, how many people on that Zoom call, huh? We made it a month ago. Okay, Destiny. Let's see what Destiny, there he is.
And his vice president running mate on his ticket right now, neither of them will acknowledge the outcome of the last election. That disqualifies the majority of you, in my opinion, from even being able to vote again for at least like 3 elections. You should be banned, maybe even have your citizenship revoked, because I don't even know if you're a fucking American at this point. I would rather ship in 500,000 dog-eating Haitians than have some dipshit that doesn't even believe the election was real because they're so fucking mad that their ass-cleaned orange clown didn't get to win like he wanted to. So, I mean, you can call it what you want, but the reality is you guys are fucking delusional. Like, you still live in a fantasy land, and nobody's ever made you.
Oh no!
It's insane. It's unhinged.
All right, I think we go back.
He's getting cracked out.
Yeah, he's having a hard time today.
No, but I mean, like he's like, it feels like he's Adderalled out, dude. Like,
well, he is every day. He's Adderalled out of his mind.
His pupils?
That's not his smug, happy, pretentious Destiny. That's salty, seething, bitter Destiny. You know right well they lost. They were pounded pillar to fucking post. Woo! I can't wait for the CNN Cope. Are they going to tell us that Walz won? I can't wait to hear them tell us how Walz won. I don't think he won at any point. I don't think he has any advantage at all.
It's steamroll. It's been an actual, like, bang, bang, like, headshot.
Well, I was very willing to come out tonight and say Vance won. He crushed, that Walz won. Vance was crushed, and because that's what I honestly expected to happen. I thought Vance.
Well, you started with that, right? You started with they both suck. They're both, and then you're just like, whoa, wait a sec. By the third question.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly,
virtual
thank you to all of you.
toss?
If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead.
It's just
and the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself.
But
now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road.
How is he?
Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
It's so fucking.
All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies.
Class.
I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years.
Is there anybody who prefers Trump to this?
We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance,
Flawless.
thank you. And thank you both for participating in
they
the
did
only
already
vice
try to fire
presidential
Trump.
debate of this election
Let's
cycle.
go to CNN.
I'm Margaret
All right,
Brennan.
let me just make this
And I'm
poll.
Nora O'Donnell.
Create.
And a reminder, there
Go
are
ahead,
just
guys.
35
You
days
can vote. Let's see
until
the
Election
code.
Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here
Yo,
at
that was
Wow,
fucking
that was a
flawless.
star-making performance. His closing statement, I think that was the best closing statement I've heard at a debate ever. Like, actually, ever. It was just like every issue up and down the board. Like, people are worried about being able to own a home. People are worried about being able to keep the lights on. Like, people are worried about living in safe neighborhoods. They're worried about crime. They're worried about fentanyl and the drugs pouring in. They're worried about immigration and the rising cost of living. And he nailed every single point. And then he also painted like a positive message towards the future. I'm really
civil debate, despite months
that's very loud.
rather vicious and nasty attacks between Senator Vance and Governor Walz.
Was it really vicious and nasty?
Kind and agreeable.
Okay, they're saying Trump and Kamala was. Okay. Shit, it fucking.
Yeah, it's. Do we have another site for the CNN? It's like actually it's lagging. I bet you because it's like literally like everyone's watching this right now.
Let me see if I.
Let me just do. If anyone has a link, it's just glitching.
Weakest moment
Their
all
site
night
just
when
sucks
he claimed
balls,
that Donald Trump,
there we go.
handed over power peacefully. Obviously not.
By the way,
accurate,
DJ
but
Ray for
generally,
5 subs.
Dana
Oh,
and
look at
Abby,
the call. It
my
was not
overall
accurate.
impression is that both men came to seem
January
likable.
6th talking point won't save them. It reset again.
They sound really like low energy.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that.
I think this was kind of the rehab debate. Rehab in terms of image. Certainly that was the case of J.D. Vance. That was his goal of trying to rehab his image, and more importantly, the image of the guy at the top of the ticket. But
look
I'm
at
not
how
sure
sad
at the
that
end of
black
the
woman
the
is.
day, it's really going to matter. I just want to say right
By the way, our poll,
you
52%
we did
for
see
Vance
something
to Trump.
that kind of close to what I'm saying.
52-48.
Chatting. Their wives
That's
came
wild.
out chatting. That was not something we saw anything close to in the presidential.
I think we
Like,
should
even
lose
CNN's
track.
like, that
I
was
think
a
even
good,
in the civility
like,
of the
chill.
fact that J.D. Vance came to this debate to land a bunch of punches, and he did. He
Whoa!
landed a lot of punches.
They can't
with
even
all the
cope.
niceties and all of that.
He's like,
and the thing that really stood out to me was that Tim Walz did not seem prepared for it. He responded to a lot of the criticisms and attacks that Vance put on the table. He allowed some clear falsehoods to just go completely unanswered. He allowed J.D. Vance essentially to dodge on a whole host of issues, on climate change, on the issue of his flip-flopping on Donald Trump.
What do you mean
allowed
he
Vance
answered that
initially
question about the
to
Trump?
claim that
He said he was
He
wrong
answered
about it.
everything. He nailed it.
Like, she's like, oh, he didn't answer. Okay, CNN sites fucking. It's probably like 1 billion people. It's gonna keep resetting. There's probably 1 million people watching right now.
Man.
I don't think any server on the internet is ready for, like, it has to be YouTube.
I think there was.
I don't know why
clear
they're
lack
like.
of
Is there a YouTube link?
preparation
Is there a
and
YouTube link?
execution
Check
here
for
on
YouTube.
Walz's
I think
Because
actually
no
it's the opposite.
one
I think he
regular
had
site's
too
gonna-
much preparation.
Maybe.
He had so many lines
Hold
that he
on, I
was
got
really
one
trying to
here.
say
Did you hear that?
that he didn't
They
listen
said
and said
Vance
when
was too prepared.
Oh, he was too prepared.
Like, he was
right.
He was too
right.
prepared.
This is the ultimate cope.
We'll see if this one works better.
Too prepared. He was just too good, bros.
You know what,
He was
dude?
just too good.
I'm gonna tell you.
Oh, huff that copium. This one I think will work really good.
Yeah, cool.
What
Man,
were they
like,
told?
This is
what were
nuts.
Vance and Walz told?
I've never
in
seen
terms
the
of
whole
what was their
internet
goal for the
break
night?
over like.
Probably they were told that this is about supporting your running mate
nice
and
quality,
going
too.
after the running mate on
Yes,
the other
it's much
side,
better
the
now.
presidential ticket, not the vice president, and also trying to appeal to undecided voters. And there might only be 2-3% of those left, but that's still a significant group. When
Look
you
at
have
how
an election
glum
that's
they are.
razor thin.
They're so sad.
The margins are
Because
so
they know.
tight. So one of the things I thought is, it sounded, based on how you listen to the Vance and Walz talk, that
They
there
can't
are certain
even
assumptions
spin
that
it.
they're making about those undecided voters.
Sure. Yeah.
One of them, that those undecided voters support abortion rights. Because J.D. Vance is fairly clear and on the record, and has been for years, that he supports banning abortion nationally. It was on his Senate issues page before he was picked as Donald Trump's running mate. To hear J.D. Vance talk about that issue tonight,
this is Copesville.
He expressed
we're going to give this a few minutes, and we're going to
go
to Vosh.
For not reaching out more, not talking to more people, wanting to provide more options for women. And yes, absolutely.
I want to hear Van Jones
go after him on that.
Let's go to the larger panel.
You're actually explaining exactly what I think was missing on the debate stage. J.D. Vance has a record.
Oh my God, Vosh looks like he's gonna die.
And you didn't really hear about that from
good.
Tim Walz.
You know what?
It doesn't have to be lengthy, but you just didn't hear it. And secondly,
here, I'll leave this open, okay? I'll leave this one open.
Let's go to Vosh for a second.
My pause screen I have on my other window. You look at this. He looks
Donald Trump.
Look at him.
Trump wanted to remove ABC's broadcasting license after the Kamala Harris debate. Oh, God, I didn't even see this. After he lost the debate with Kamala Harris,
so
still fuming
he's
just
been
hours after
having
the late night
to pause
debate, calling
it,
the Fox
so
News to
he's
blame ABC's
behind
moderators
because
and
he's
network saying he doesn't want to
the
do the
whole
debate at all.
time.
To be honest, they're a news org. They have to be licensed to do that. They ought to take their license away for the way they did that. Said person who is potentially 2 months away from being the, nominated.
People are
president
yelling
of the United
sore
States.
loser.
See,
oh no!
His chat says
Nice.
she's more F slur.
Turning
Very
on
nice.
him. Oh no!
But remember, censorship is when people on Twitter get banned for telling you that injecting bleach into your veins will cure COVID.
Taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it. That's what we're asking you, America.
Tears of
Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office?
It's a good day.
And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that.
They're already coping over on CNN. They switched it to polls.
Really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back.
Oh man, Vosh looks like he's about to blow his brains out.
Debate continues.
Can it stop? Can it stop? Can it be free?
Can it stop? Can it stop?
Can it be over?
Begging for it
I can just catch up to live because we're. See, that's the benefit of pausing.
Let's keep watching Vosh. Let's keep watching.
I want to keep watching.
So Governor Walz,
Vosh is where it's
first.
at
You have
right
2 minutes.
now.
Well,
he's
thank you, Senator
seething
Vance.
bad.
Thank you to CBS News, and most
I
importantly,
love Vosh here. This
thank
is
you to
so
all of
good.
you. If you're still up and the folks,
You
who miss
pedophile
Dancing with the
Vosh,
Stars, I
you
appreciate
horse
it. But
fucker.
look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here, and I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition.
He advocated for this guy too. He begged for this guy. He's like, we need walls. We need walls. We need walls.
And they don't all agree.
How do the walls taste now, buddy?
Optimistic people.
Did you hear
in a positive future of this country,
Netflix
and one where our
guy, like
politics
director,
can be better than
he
it
supported
is.
Kamala
And
Harris.
I have to tell you,
and then the fucking
that better than it
unsubscription rate
is the sense of
went up
optimism that there can be an
400% in the last 2
opportunity
days
economy
on Netflix.
that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something.
Break
Not
the
the
wall.
freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage.
Vosh is
And
like,
then
I don't know if I've seen
spent 4
anybody
years
that
trying to maybe
seething
do
in a
that.
long time.
Senator Vance tonight,
Like, this
made
is
it
like
clear
a Ralph
he will
Gear
stand
facial
with
expression.
Donald
man.
Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road.
He's not even moving.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris gives us a different option.
He's
Now, I'll
reading
have to tell
Twitter
you,
right now and
I'm
going,
gonna be
"Are
careful
we
about
He's
this,
like,
but
this
there's
isn't
one that Senator
good.
Vance
This
said
isn't
does
good.
resonate
And
with
this
me.
is the last
He
debate
said
before the
Donald Trump
election.
makes the
Oh
people I care
no.
about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward.
I'm very educated.
She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real
What a thing
solutions
to
for the
say.
middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Hold
Governor
on.
Walz, thank you.
CNN, they've
Governor
gone
Walz
to the
is going
full
to
panel.
list
Will you,
the age
will
of
you
consent in
pause,
all 50
Vosh?
states.
Yeah.
And then we'll
I wanna see his
pick up
reaction to-
exactly,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We'll pick up exactly where we were with Vosh. Let's see CNN's more open panel. Let's see Van Jones
really which Governor Walz almost played along with. I mean, rather than sort of pointing out, wow, this is a completely different guy, he sort of said, oh, we agree on
well, and I think it comes naturally to Walz. I think someone,
look at Van Jones.
Look at him. Said, I wonder how many people in the country said, gee, I wish these could be the two candidates.
Yes,
because they were people who seem to be having a reasonable discussion. Bottom line on this, I don't think it changes the race at all. It was an interesting night. I don't think it changes the race at all.
I was struck by the fact that J.D. Vance is a significantly more eloquent Donald Trump. Watching that, I don't agree with J.D. Vance on quite a bit, but he speaks to MAGA in a way that he comes off as an incredibly effective communicator. I honestly would be surprised that Donald Trump doesn't want to debate again because J.D. Vance did so well, and he's going to want the final kind of, the closing argument. But listen, J.D. Vance is a chameleon. There's multiple sides to him. It's one of his greatest political strengths.
Kind of
he showed up with a hand of facts. There were some untrue things that he said, but he tried to show the side of empathy with him that I found myself believing it, and then I remember his lies about Haitian kids, his comments about childless cat ladies.
They weren't lies, though. They were
true. A mean-spirited internet.
Did you hear what she said?
Long and short, I don't know that this moves the needle, but I do think it solidifies his place as the MAGA era parent.
I had to remember. I
Look,
worked for
I
CNN.
think what you saw tonight was the kitchen table versus the Ivy League. I went to the same law school as J.D. Vance, and that's how they teach us to do it. Slick, slick, slick. The problem is J.D. Vance changes personalities like most people change suits, and his job was to come out tonight and try to sane wash the crazy. Sane wash all the crazy stuff he said against women, against Haitians.
Like Van Jones is trying to make himself better based off JD's performance. Like, what a strange hope.
He lied about American energy production, which is up. He said it's down. He lied about health care. He said Donald Trump saved Obamacare.
They're sane washing.
I want to talk about that when you're done.
Maybe it's just what he says is true, and that's why it's sane.
Peaceful transfer of power. He lied. He said he never supported a national abortion ban.
Well, there was a peaceful transfer of power.
Donald Trump is the gaslighter in chief.
Was there a civil war?
Loyal lieutenant who came out here to try to
gaslighter in chief.
Crazy. And I
I
think
wanted this cope
very,
so
very
bad.
Careful. This is a very,
I wanted
very
these salty
deceptive
tears from
guy.
Van Jones so bad.
We are trained to do what he did, and don't fall for it.
Can I just say, go ahead,
JD.
No,
don't fall for
look,
it.
I think from this perspective, right, the Republican side of the world, 10 out of 10 for JD.
God, I love JD.
10
out of 10.
He landed a lot of good punches, but he did so with iron fist and a velvet glove. He was very smooth.
An iron
he was
fist
likable.
and a velvet
He looked presidential. He had a command of the facts. He wasn't flustered. He was a guy you'd want to have a beer with. Okay? Tim Walz, Coach Walz, your boy, fumbled bigly on Tiananmen Square. I mean, he was talking about riding a bike in Nebraska and the summers, and he went on and on and on. And he should have just said, look, I misspoke. I screwed up. I'm a human. Instead, he looked, he lied about that, and maybe people reminded him of his lies about time of uniform.
He's like,
so that
actually.
was bad. I was
Van Jones is
the other thing I was struck
struggling
by,
right now.
no question on Ukraine. One of the biggest issues facing our country and the globe. No question on Ukraine. And then my final thought was,
I'm glad.
Me too. I'm so
glad. Up there tonight.
Well,
right, my friend Governor Josh Shapiro up on that stage with J.D. Vance.
Yeah, the bald guy is the token right winger.
Heavyweight slugfest.
It's Kino.
Yeah, really intellectual,
I think they're
great
kicking
candidates.
themselves for not bringing in Josh.
Harris people are thinking maybe we should have picked Josh Shapiro.
I when you say 10 out of 10 and velvet fist and so on. By the end of the debate, he was like the guy with like fleet gym shoes on running away from the question. He wouldn't answer the question about the election. Couldn't because Donald Trump would not allow
But he turned
him
it
to
around
say
with the
that
censorship
the election,
and made
was legitimate. But on the health care issue, because I was there, I just want to tell you,
endless.
The Affordable Care Act has meant so much
I hate
to so
Axl
many people.
Rod.
Donald Trump tried 60 times to kill it.
The
Only
Obama
John McCain
legacy
saved it. When he couldn't kill it, he cut the budget for marketing of the
John
ACA.
McCain's a
He
traitor.
cut subsidies for the ACA. There were many ways in which he tried to strangle the ACA because he couldn't outright kill it. And he said in this campaign that he wanted to eliminate it still. So to hold him up as a champion, the guy who saved the Affordable Care Act, was perhaps the most disingenuous thing.
But it's jokes, and he did it though. But he did it.
Walz to sort of prosecute a case against J.D. Vance more?
And yes, and he did. And I think the biggest flub of the night was Tiananmen Square, but I also thought that Walz could have gone on the offensive.
What about
more.
when
I mean,
he said
this
he
issue
was
with
friends
Haitian
with
migrants
school
was
shooters?
horrible. The Republican governors we mentioned denounced the
I
lies
can
that were
only
spread.
get so
There wasn't
erect
a lot
with
of
this. I'm
ifs
so
landed.
happy.
It was more
That
just
was
playing defense or
actually- I
sticking
thought
to
it
the
was gonna be a
issues that he was
snooze
trying to
fest.
push
It got
forward on.
so good.
And there were things he
It
could have
got
done.
really
I was
good.
glad we passed
kind of stunned by the
technical issues and all
Obamacare
the
that he let him
fucking
get
kick
as far as
issues.
he did on
Because
suggesting
this
that Trump
was
was the savior of it.
amazing.
The
I think
deployment
that,
stuff
to
didn't
be
even
honest,
come
Tim Walz
up.
was a little
Vance
in over
didn't
his head
even need
tonight.
to
I think
insult
his
the
performance got
service, the
better by the
National
end of the
Guard
night.
bullshit,
The best
and how he
moment,
didn't
and
go to
unfortunately it's
Iraq.
probably what the
He
fewest
didn't even
voters are
need
going to have
that.
seen, was the January 6th answer. That felt like the moment that he had kind of taken the bait on J.D. Vance being the nice guy and trying to be friendly with him. And in that moment, he's like, wait, this is somebody I don't trust. This is somebody who has lied about things, and he kind of found his bearings there. That was
Two
a
more
moment
minutes
that
and back to
I think
Vosh,
actually will
and then
play
we
with
got to get to
undecided voters because he
TYT.
called him out pretty
This is
directly.
great,
The other
though.
vote-
This is amazing. 10 out of 10 fucking political
He should
debate.
avoid
Like,
the
seriously.
trap of not
Let's
being
get some
who he is.
subs for
He
this.
came
Do you
and
think
he
this will
was
affect
who
the
he
election?
is.
I think it
And
will.
My guess is
little
that
bit,
when
at
A little
least.
bit, like very
voters
like
are
a
asked
small
about
percentage.
this, they are going to say
It just
Vice
this was
President
more of
is
a draw
fucking
than,
humili- it's
than
terrible.
we're depicting it
Yeah.
as
A
here.
big
More from here,
humiliation,
but I
a
wanted to
big
get
L
Collins
from
in the spin room.
them.
Caitlin?
Thank you, sir.
Will it really change the result?
Yeah, Anderson, thank you.
Probably
I am
not.
here in the spin room. It is very crowded in here, as you can tell,
We need
understandably.
Vance
And
to
for those who
debate
don't know, the
Kamala.
spin room is where surrogates come after a debate has finished to spin their respective candidates' performance. We saw a slew of them come in the door,
Now
both
we're
on
all
the Vance
five.
side and the
All
Walz
for
side. But right
5
now,
subs.
something
Big
notable is
support.
happening, which is that Senator Vance himself is inside the spin room. This is not a last-minute decision like it was for Donald Trump
Kino.
to come into the
Now
spin
he's
room
going out
after
and
that
battling
last
all the
debate that he
journalists
had
like
with
Kino.
Vice President Harris. J.D. Vance had already planned to come into the spin room regardless of how this debate went. But I've been talking to a few
They may as
allies
well just
of the
call
former
it
presidents
Coke
and
Show.
J.D. Vance's saying that they believe he had a strong performance in this debate tonight, that they achieved what he actually came here to do. Of course, there's a big question of whether or not it actually moves the electorate any. We didn't really see that after the Harris-Trump debate, so that's a big question here. I will tell you that we heard some Democrats coming in as well. The governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, is in here. Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. One answer that Amy Klobuchar was focusing on when she first came in the room was not on what
You
Tim
know
Walz
it's
said
bad
before
when they're
in
having
this
to
debate.
send
It
out
was focusing on
Klobuchar.
how that debate ended. That question there at the end
Not
about
grim.
January 6th and how Governor Walz was talking about that in comparison to how Senator Vance was framing that. So
I
that
don't
seems to be
think
the
there's
initial reaction
anyone
so
who
far
likes
here in the spin
Klobuchar,
room.
is
That
there?
Democrats are going to
Is there
focus on that
even
last
one person
exchange
out
there
there that
where
likes
Vance did
Amy
not acknowledge that
Klobuchar?
Donald Trump lost
I'm an
the
Amy
2020
Klobuchar
election.
voter.
Meanwhile, the Trump surrogates came in here quite happy. Several
Three
senators,
little
also several
skinny
campaign
Jewish
advisors
women in
praising
Minnesota
J.D. Vance's
somewhere
performance.
love
There's a question,
Klobuchar.
Anderson, tonight,
Other
an
than
open
that-
one, of whether or not what happened on that debate stage changes
Look at
Donald Trump's
Cooper.
view of the debates, and if it encourages him to potentially meet Harris on the debate stage again.
Yeah.
Some people have been trying to convince
His
him to do
eyes
so.
are so
So far,
small.
it has not been successful, Anderson.
Caitlin, it looks kind of crowded in that spin room.
Nick
Well,
liked
check back in with
Klobuchar,
Harrison.
Jay.
Yeah.
Orders, and as I said, I'm not
Is he
calling it a
insane?
spin room. I'm calling it a spin closet because it is quite constrained. Typically, they've been pretty
Coke
open
closet?
areas. And remember,
You
Donald
call it
Trump came into
Coke
this building, which is quite large.
Spin closet, but yeah.
It's about
It is
mainly
the
Secret
Coke
Service
closet.
officers, which are the ones
Coke
standing behind me
closet
doing their
spin
jobs.
room.
And of course, a lot of
Cooper's out of
surrogates
the
in here. We're going to get all of their perspectives.
All right, we'll check back in with you. Ben, you were wanting to say something.
Well, I
Oh,
do
here we
just
go.
want to
This is
say
the
that
last
there
Van
are
Jones
a lot of people who I know who are independents who actually
is my
appreciated the
last
debate was
Coke.
civil. I'm getting a lot of that. The people are like, listen, the American voters won tonight because you did have a civil debate. It was substantive, and there wasn't a lot of name calling. And so I do just want to acknowledge that part.
This
that
is
part
just
was
making
positive.
Kamala and
I
Trump
also
look
think
bad, eh?
people
It
have been
is,
kind of
well,
tough on
this is a return
Coach
to
tonight.
politics
I
as
don't think he had a
usual,
great
isn't
night,
it?
Yeah,
but
yeah,
substantively,
it reminds
that's what people
me-
were happy about.
in-
I thought he
Yeah,
explained his
go ahead.
home policy, home building policy
It
really
reminds
well.
me of what
Vance
politics
was just blaming him
used
and
to be before the fucking clown show and the battle.
African American voters and black male voters, this idea of entrepreneurship is important. He hit that very well.
Totally
Much better on gun
real,
policy.
but it felt to me a lot more like pre-Trump politics. It felt to me like this is, when Biden beat Trump in 2020, they called it like restoring normalcy and back to business as usual and typical Republican and Democrat. That to me felt like the ultimate moment of that.
Yes.
Where it really was, going back in time, it was a lot less showmanship and it was a lot more traditional politics.
Yeah.
It's back to the party. Is Jarbo coping?
No.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's the adults are in charge again type thing.
I think JD Vance, again, 10 out of 10. He comes out of here, looks like you said, a well-trained, well-educated, thoughtful individual, not mean-spirited. Somebody who would be your neighbor, live in your neighborhood. He's got kids.
So you have to change his personality.
I don't think it's his personality.
Oh,
I think that's who he is. You may think differently, but I think a lot of Americans
punch him because
He's
there
so
are times
mad.
when Vance says things in front of crowds like that dogs and cats are being eaten in Springfield. That is
exactly.
Okay, so that's not who showed up tonight. This was an intentional strategy.
No, he said he acknowledged that. He acknowleded the fact that
he didn't
said
back
those things.
down
He said,
off that.
"Hey, look, he said,
David,
listen, we both have said things that we wish we didn't say." He said that when Wall said it, he goes, "We both."
Who's this
Saying
guy
Washington
rules?
crazy was a great line.
He's the bald guy, yeah. When he paid after
thank you so
Joe
much. We're
Biden
here
debate,
in
he said,
spin
who
room,
let
spin
him go
closet,
up
whatever you
there?
wanna
He
call
said,
it. It is rather
if that was
cramped in
my
here. And we're
father
here, joined
or
by
my
Minnesotan.
grandfather and he was
Right? Is that how
demented
you
like
say
that, I would
Minnesota?
have
So-
let him
That
on
is pretty
stage.
much that.
Oh
Senator
my
Amy
God, it's
Klobuchar, who knows,
Klobuchar.
Governor Tim Walz
Oh,
very well. You've known him
no.
for quite some time.
Not
So
Klobuchar, buddy.
they were very nice to each other.
Minnesota nice.
And they would grant each other, "Oh, I'm sure you want to solve this problem."
It's time
but
to go
Donald
back to
Trump,
Vosh.
or, "I'm sure you want to solve this problem, but it's Kamala Harris."
CNN Cope is good. Let's do a little bit of Vosh, a little bit of TYT, and then we'll move on from the debate. But we have to relish in this a little bit.
We do. No, it's great. It's great. I'm enjoying
We have
it.
to enjoy the salt. This is a big win. Big win.
Definitely.
Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank
See
Governor
this
Waltz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And
Did
one
I
of the
say
issues we
Governor
didn't
Waltz?
talk about was energy. And I
He wouldn't do
remember
that.
when I was being raised by my grandmother.
J.D. Vance would do
when
that.
she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a
I've
rich
befriended
and
many school
prosperous enough
shooters.
country where every American,
fucking
whether they're
Diddler
rich or
Dad
poor, ought to
also
be able to
feeding?
turn on their heat in the middle of a
Why?
cold winter night. That's
know.
gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala
he
Harris's
liberal
energy
now?
policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities
whistle.
flooded with fentanyl. And that
Dog
too has
whistle.
gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these
Vosh is
challenges
gonna
I
be the
just
best
listed.
entertainment
She's
here, I'm telling you.
been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse.
That is not the job of the VP. I keep having to say this, but I just want to make sure everyone watching know the president and the vice presidents are actually different jobs. Maybe J.D. Vance doesn't think that because he's been assured that Trump will probably keel over 6 days after
the
the inauguration and he
getting
gets to be president.
unreal.
You know, like Heritage Foundation was like, yeah, no, don't worry. He's pretty old, but...
Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible...
I'm sorry. Wait, that was just like an impressively low bar to set. I meet people who are struggling with finances, but they're still nice enough to ask me how I'm doing.
What?
You just met people.
Nobody else watching.
I feel like you could get that like anywhere. Like there are better arguments you can make for the goodness of America than that. I think America actually does generally have a pretty like good like good people. Like we're known for being a friendly country in a lot of ways.
I know.
So it's just I don't know. It's just like a remarkable undersell. Honestly, I mean he's a lizard person. So.
Nothing he can do matters
in the world, but they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington.
Listen, America's a good country. He's met people who could barely afford to pay for groceries, and they said to him, in spite of all that, "Can I take your order, sir?" And that's the reason why he thinks America is the greatest country in the world.
going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day.
I know. I'm aware.
We're streaming that whole day, right?
Well,
yeah, there's only 31 days.
I think Tim Walz did a good job. I think that he was largely quite friendly and conciliatory, which makes sense. As satisfying as it would be to me for him to call J.D. Vance a pedophile, I think it's probably a little bit more in line with his marketing, let's say, for him to be very nice. I think it worked out pretty well. I think he genuinely did a good job with that in terms of like balancing the pushback while also being like very nice, because that's kind of like one of the big selling points, right? One of the big arguments from Kamala Harris's campaign, one of their big rhetorical selling points is the idea of, aren't you tired of the constant hate and misery and fear-mongering and such and such? Don't you want like nice people, neighborly people to be running the country? So it makes sense in that context that he would be, friendly.
Imagine
so I have no issues whatsoever with that.
Wasn't
he was a little bit nervous at first. By him, I mean Tim Walz. J.D. Vance isn't a person.
That Walz did good.
And
it was a one-sided
he worked it off pretty quick. I mean, that's normal. That's to be expected. Keep in mind that like Tim Walz has never really operated on a platform of this size. So it makes sense that he would.
You were the one who said to put him in prime time.
Like you got to shake that off. I mean, I've debated plenty of people, and you still sometimes at the beginning you're like, what's my angle? And then you go into the rhythm and you're fine. So that was good.
No, that's what happened.
I mean, I think that J.D. Vance did
the rhythm.
Yeah,
I think J.D. Vance did maybe slightly better than I expected.
At least CNN was more like
even Bosch had to say he did slightly better than he expected.
Yeah.
Like, it was a
him
stomping.
saying, but I thought there was no fact checking in this debate. That was the deal. And him refusing to answer whether Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. It's probably those two. Those two are probably going to be like the runaway bits. I don't think at any point J.D. Vance got a zinger. I don't think Tim Walz like flubbed. Tim Walz at one point did say he's befriended school shooters, which was very funny. What he meant to say, of course, was he's befriended like victims or the families of the victims of school shooters. So that's pretty funny. I enjoyed that. I also do like the fact that Tim Walz in multiple points there dove in with what I'd consider to be relatively radical positions on housing and healthcare. It seemed like he was leaning in pretty hard towards the logic of the single-payer system, where it's like, okay, having a public option is great in concept, but in practice what that means is that the corporations are going to structure their insurance policies to ensure they're only going to be insuring people who are like, 28 years old, 11% body fat. They go on a run for 20 minutes every morning at 6 a.m. And which means the government is going to get stuck with people like me, and that's going to cost the government to anyone there in your local downtown area. Why? You know why? Because gigantic multi-billion-dollar companies, sometimes domestic, sometimes foreign, buy up that land and they hold it because the more scarce land is, the more they can piecemeal sell it off at. They're hoping for that big payday, and they can't like lease it in the meantime because that would increase the availability of housing or of business space, which drives down the price.
TYT.
Yep.
Pause him here. We might pick back up with him. Let's go to TYT.
Sure.
Let's see how they're holding up. Then we'll check in on Destiny briefly. If they're not in the midst
moderate
of like
voters, the independent voters.
Oh, here we go.
And the hardcore MAGA messaging might appeal to the MAGA voters. We're going to vote for Trump anyway. But that's not going to appeal to the swing voters at all.
Yeah, so let me just show the last Walz clip here, because after he said that was a damning non-answer, then we got clip 10 here where he put him away. Let's watch.
So Walz beat him, the Chenko?
I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look,
this is
when Mike Pence made
home.
that decision
Anna,
to certify that
it's
election,
time to
that's why Mike Pence isn't on the stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall?
I would have just
with Donald
accepted.
Trump?
Yeah.
Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including picking an election,
Go to
and
Destiny.
his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America.
It wasn't even fucking close, by the way.
No.
It wasn't even like, oh, maybe they were equal, so you would vote for your guy, right? No, it was like complete fucking
45-minute openings.
Yeah, no, I mean, I literally just said that. Yeah, I feel that in my own debate format. So that's why I don't like debating conservatives. You should be able to interrupt a conservative because they lie like they breathe effortlessly. And
yeah, but you don't lie. You don't
allow a conservative to just ramble off a whole bunch of
they'll rewrite history in front of your face.
It's 1984 where you're at war with a different country halfway through the sentence of the party leader. That's how Republicans function. And if nobody's there to call them out on it, then you can whitewash or stainwash so much of the history.
Pointless, and you need to turn to violence. What he's saying for months now. It's just like,
look at his pupils. Like, come on. That's dialed. That's
responsible for that because he did, and
he's on.
I agree with this, and I agree with that. And in a way, look
at the way his mouth moves around.
Yeah, his jaw.
Shouldn't he be more aggressive? Shouldn't he be more acrimonious?
Yeah, but it's really hard to be aggressive when the other guy's being so. What would you say, magnanimous? When the other guy's being like decently. Like, imagine, like, Vance says, like, wow, Walls, I just want to hold on real quick. I didn't know that your son, saw that shooting. That was tragic. And then Walls is like, well, you Republicans, you don't do anything about gun violence. Like, you would look unhinged. You can't,
You cannot.
Yeah, so JD was a great presenter.
Your anger.
That's why it kind of seemed like I didn't know who was trying to out nice each other, or like if they both went into the debate trying to be.
You can tell Destiny's depressed.
Walls was very positive throughout the entirety of that debate.
You can tell he's.
I wonder if they were both going in with that strategy, and it just kept on going. Like,
well, it's part of that's been part of Walls' success and why his favorability ratings are so high. The reason Vance did it obviously is because he has to make up ground. I mean, his favorability.
He made up a lot of ground tonight
prior to this debate, so it makes sense why he did what he did. I mean, for me, and there's a risk I'm talking out my ass here because I can't quite remember the specific
This is just cult crew. All right, are we doing the Laura Loomer?
Yeah, let's do the Laura Loomer thing. Yeah,
let's do some Laura Loomer shit. Okay.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Right. Everyone say thank you for. Yeah.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
Everyone, thank you. I was worried. I'm like, is this going to be like another boring debate? But it ended up being so fucking good. And we're going to be doing for sure a stream on the debate, on the election night, and we're gonna be probably streaming like earlier, and then watch it go as the night goes. So make sure you fucking
watching. I think we'll do like a hybrid sort of thing for election night, where we cover the drama of the day when it's kind of slow. Early in the night. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some guests on for it. I'm not sure yet what the plan is for election day. I thought maybe we wouldn't stream during it, but it seems like people were liking the political content.
Yeah.
So we'll probably stream election night. And even though I just wanted to watch it alone and get drunk, but whatever.
It's up to you, however you feel.
No, we'll stream it. We'll stream. You guys want that? Do you guys want an election night coverage from the casino? We bring Jaden on. Yeah, Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden for sure. Yeah, definitely. Cause they want it. Yeah. No, I understand you just want to chill out and stuff, but I think it would be really exciting. Like, may Trump just win? May he just win? Can we just like be live with all the tweets of screaming and TYT losing their mind?
What we have to remember, the position we have to take on this though, is that no matter what happens, it's gonna be really funny.
Yeah.
No matter who wins, there's going to be epic meltdowns, coping, seething. I think obviously it will be funnier if Trump wins.
Yeah.
But if Kamala wins, seeing the MAGA people melt down and the MAGA grifters get felted.
Memes.
They're circling the drain, and everybody, like the left will all be Yas queening, and I don't know. It will actually be a nightmare from hell, but we're going to cope and try and mock the Trump supporters anyway.
Oh, man. I remember.
Great.
I was streaming. I was on D-Live when the last election, and I was drunk on whiskey. And by the end, I was wearing a suit, and by the end, my tie's like loosened. I'm just drunk. I'm like, what the fuck? Like I'm screaming.
You
like,
remember that gay stoner? You remember my Cope and Hope streams in 2020, where it was like, here's how Trump can still win. Here's how fucking Godwinson pulls me in the car. He's like, PPP, it's over. You have to stop coping. I'm like, fuck you. Trump has the generals. You don't know what you're talking about, you British piece of shit. He's going to save us. Unfortunately, it was all a big cope, and I was fucking felt it there.
There was like a 30-minute section where we all watched the remember like the footage of like the box being pulled out like in the middle of the night at 2 a.m, like the box of votes that was under the table, and then everyone's like circling where they found the box, like the random box. The random
box. The smoking gun. Rudy Giuliani's like, I have the smoking gun. They have the ballot. They're bringing in the ballots. They're bringing in the ballots. The 3 a.m. dump, and then the line graph, and it just goes, whoop.
Yeah, 90 degrees. And we're like, oh, come on, that's bullshit.
Remember Rudy's fucking hairline melted off? Like his Just for Men melt. He was sweating so bad. And there's the hair dye coming down his fucking face.
Oh.
Did anybody watch that documentary on HBO called Stop the Steal? It was
I think
it was crazy. They unleashed the Kraken. They got that like mannequin looking bitch up on stage, up on Fox News to say she was unleashing the Kraken. And then the Kraken turned out to be fuck all. Rudy was in front of the Four Seasons. But it was it wasn't the hotel, the Four Seasons. It was the Four Seasons landscaping company. That's right, Sidney Powell. And then the My Pillow guy. And My Pillow guy like kept saying he had definitive proof that it was fake. And me and Surfer are just sitting there in the apartment. We're like, it's fucking over, dude. We're so fucked. I remember it was January 6th. And we slept in. We didn't think anything was going to happen. We fucking woke up, and the first thing I saw was Baked Alaska in Nancy Pelosi's office.
Base department.
I just wake him up. Surfer, Bakes and Nancy Pelosi. What, buddy? What do you mean, buddy? We put it on the fucking TV. It's like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on?
Okay, I remember I was streaming with Ralph and some other people on a panel. And Ralph, you know how he is? You know how he's like mad when you mention anyone else's stream while he's live? I remember I'm like, Ralph, you know Baked's in the fucking Capitol building? And he was like, no, shh. Like, he was like mad at me.
Tell them to go watch Baked, yeah.
But I'm like, no, I don't think you. And he was like so mad. And I'm like, I'm going to go because I want to watch this. And he was like I remember he was like mad at me because he's like, oh, you're fucking pushing people away from my show. I'm like, bro, Baked Alaska is in the Capitol building on Nancy Pelosi's phone. And he was talking about some other random like story that was like gay about like black crime. And I'm like, can we?
Okay. Jaden has just said the funniest thing in chat. He goes, I got a text from Bake that night that said, why do people keep saying I'm going to go to jail? He did, in fact, go to prison. That's just how ignorant Baked is. Like, he had no idea what the consequences would even be.
Yeah. Oh, buddy, it was beyond. It was beyond. That fucked me and a lot of streamers because we were all over on D-Live and they demonetized all of us, even though we were against Baked Alaska. Yeah, I was clearly.
It didn't matter.
But if you were anywhere on the right, kind of, if you were like to the right of the fence, you were fucking demonetized. And now look at D-Live. They're fucking.
Well, it killed D-Live. Yeah. It was it. They purged everybody that people were there to watch, and then they have nothing.
Yeah. Well, D-Live started as the Nick Fuentes fucking, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Nick
It was
Fuentes came over there and was like, this is the platform. And he brought all the groypers. And then Ralph went over there. You were over there.
Yep.
You know,
It was
PewDiePie
great.
was on it at one point. You're right, Jaden. Remember when D-Live signed PewDiePie and there was all that hype?
Yeah, but he was there for like what, two fucking shows, and then he just like never came back. Wow, no, that was, man, the fucking memories. I think Trump's gonna win. Kamala can't win, right?
I can't live in the timeline where Kamala wins.
No.
Well, especially now because like there's going to be this war in Iran. Can we really have a wartime president be a woman?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Who does TikToks?
Like, she's doing TikToks and like she's laughing while she's drafting you to go die in Iran. Like, surely not.
TikTok was a fucking mistake. I saw these TikToks today of cops doing these silly like TikTok. I'm like, you shouldn't be allowed to do TikToks while you're wearing your uniform. Am I wrong to say that? Like, I'm like, you're a cop.
No,
and
it's the same thing with like the nurses during COVID.
Yeah.
It's like, shouldn't you actually be taking care of the patients right now instead of virtue signaling about how great you are on fucking TikTok?
It's, oh my God, it's like this cringe. It's really fucking awful, dude. Like, my God.
Kick is fucking being brutal tonight.
It is. I got a million.
Freezing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're going to push through. We're going to do a little bit.
We should do that.